Same to you. All right, let's see what's going on around the world on the global front. For more insight, Sky News Foreign Coordinator Brent O'Halloran joins me now. Brent, what's the latest with the battle against coronavirus? Which countries are winning the fight and which are not doing so well?
Well, Peter, there's not a heap of good news here, unfortunately, though this afternoon the Medical Director for the Public Health of England says he expects a significant drop in the number of COVID-19 deaths there within the next 3 weeks. The UK has been in lockdown for the last 2 weeks, but Professor Paul Cosford says they may ease some restrictions soon. Of course, there's been a lot of attention on the UK Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, who was admitted to intensive care last weekend. He's apparently on the mend and was moved out of ICU late this week. Here is the new UK opposition leader reacting to that news.
Well, I'm really pleased for the Prime Minister and his family. It is a relief for them, and I really hope this is the beginning of a speedy recovery. And I think everywhere across the country, people will be wishing him well.
Been steady drops in infections in Spain and Italy, which of course have been ravaged by COVID-19. Wuhan, China, the origin of the pandemic, loosened its lockdown this week. And there's a bit of a concern there may be asymptomatic people who were in the area leaving Wuhan and then spreading it across the country and perhaps the world. It could create, as experts claim it may, a second wave in China. Peter, the picture is pretty grim in New York. In fact, we can show you some new powerful pictures from the US state. The death toll there now exceeds 7,000, and authorities have been so overwhelmed they've started burying bodies in mass graves. Now, here's the New York Governor, Andrew Cuomo, on the situation there.
9/11 was so devastating, so tragic, and then in many ways we lose so many more New Yorkers to this silent killer. There was no explosion.
So when the governor is referencing 9/11, you know things are pretty bleak there, Peter.
And Donald Trump took a swipe at the World Health Organization. What does the US president have against the WHO, and why is he picking a fight with it during a pandemic?
Yeah, there were some pretty strong statements against the WHO and its leadership from the US president. Trump claims the organisation dropped the ball. It was too slow in identifying the threat of COVID-19 and was ineffective in its response. He also claimed the WHO has bungled previous health crises, is too China-centric, and Trump threatened to cut US funding. Now, here's a sample of Trump's comments from earlier this week.
The World WHO, World Health, got it wrong. I mean, they got it very wrong. In many ways, they were wrong. They also minimized the threat very strongly, and not good.
Peter, Trump isn't the only person to criticise the WHO and its alleged Chinese bias. But at this stage, we haven't seen a lot of world leaders flocking to support President Trump's latest comments, Peter.
And Brent, there was a major development in the race for the White House this week. Give us your take on Bernie Sanders suspending his campaign.
Yeah, well, this really wasn't a surprise, Peter. Bernie Sanders has around 300 fewer delegates than Joe Biden, and he really didn't have a statistical chance of catching up. He's suspending his campaign, but he will remain on the ticket for the rest of the primaries in the hope of accumulating more delegates, which would give him a greater sway of, give him the ability, rather, to sway the Democratic Party more to the left in the National Convention. Now, here is Sanders explaining his decision from earlier this week.
But as I see the crisis gripping the nation, exacerbated by a president unwilling or unable to provide any kind of credible leadership, and the work that needs to be done to protect people in this most desperate hour, I cannot, in good conscience, continue to mount a campaign that cannot win and which would interfere with the important work required of all of us.
So this coronavirus crisis may have been the straw that broke the back of the Sanders campaign. Remember, Peter, he was leading the pack in the early stages of the primaries, but when pretty much all the other candidates dropped out of the race and got behind Biden, Sanders really capitulated. Sanders' second presidential tilt was fated to fail. To me, Peter, the most interesting aspect of this is that Bernie is very, very popular, as are his policies. Earlier this year, he was voted the public's favourite member of Congress in a CNN poll. He broke records for individual campaign contributions at an average of $18 per person, as well as records for rally attendances. The majority of Democrats and independents back his signature Medicare for All policy. The most recent evidence of that support is from a poll from The Hill. His other policies around trade and decreasing US military activities overseas and wiping student debt are also wildly popular. The main question then is, why didn't that popularity translate to success in the 2016 and the 2020 primaries? Now, progressives argue the Democratic Party and its establishment and the establishment media have been working against him as his policies upset the status quo and the wealthy elites. Those to the right of centre, though, say America just doesn't want more democratic socialist policies. Now, I'm not sure, Peter, the numbers prove that, but now that he's dropped out, it's pretty much a Biden-Trump showdown for November. Though in the age of coronavirus, we could see a few twists yet.
Well, Brent O'Halloran, when it comes to politics, whether it's in the UK, the United States or Australia, the answer's a pineapple, and that's the problem with politics. It's never, ever clear-cut, is it? Brent O'Halloran, thanks for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Peter.